All right. Welcome to another edition of Shabbat Lounge. This is Matt.
And Jake here.
And we are so excited that you could be with us and join us today. And Jake, how have you been?
I've been well.
Good. Well, you can see we're back in the saddle again.
That's right.
Metaphorically and physically. These are actually saddles we're sitting in, not chairs.
That's right.
So we have been busy, but we're trying to get back into a routine. And we have several authors and authors.
Yep.
And we have different people lined up, different interviews until February. So we're going to be doing this for a while, kind of a season of interviewing.
Yep.
And we just asked that you would check these people out that we're talking about and follow them as well as you follow Sabbath Lounge, like Sabbath Lounge, do all the things and share it. And you can even do things like go into iTunes and give us 5 stars. It's been a long time since someone did that. I think you can do it in Spotify, all kinds of places. So speaking of 5 stars, we are interviewing someone today who we want to give her a rating and 5 stars where she sells her books. So we don't want to forget that. So Jake, will you introduce our guest?
Yes. So today we have Rachel Durham, and she wrote a book. She's got it's a series of books that are coming out. And so she worked through Debarim Publishing as well, which is familiar to our audience because Matt's book went through Debarim Publishing, Becoming Jacob. So get it on your shelf today. So Rachel is, why don't you introduce yourself, and we'll kind of discuss your story, and we'll go through some highlights in your book, and we'll talk about that and find out some exciting things about what you have going on in the future.
Sure. Well, first, thank you so much for having me. This is a lot of fun. I'm not usually in front of the camera. I prefer to be behind it. So this is a little bit of a different experience. But so I am, first, obviously, I'm a daughter of the Father, and very humbly blessed to be so. I'm also the wife to an Army veteran. My husband served 20 years in the Army as a chaplain's assistant. And so ministry has been kind of a part of our story for a really long time. But now we were first leading a fellowship in Indiana before we moved up here to Minnesota to be part of Corner Fringe Ministries. Some of you guys may have heard of them. And now he's volunteering to help. He's not in a pastor role, but he is preaching and participating in some different aspects of ministry there. And so that's why we're in Minnesota now. Wish me luck on this winter. The white stuff is outside and the cold keeps touching me. But we moved our family up here. We've got 3 children, and then my mom, my sister, and nephew live with us as well. So it's kind of a big to-do to move this year with the sheep and the chickens and the homestead and everything. But so that's the super short version on me. Homestead, we homeschool, and we're just living life.
Yeah, so tell me about the sheep, because we raise Dorper sheep here, and they kind of shed their wool coat, and we don't have to shear them. What kind of sheep are these?
So we raise fin sheep. You do have to shear them, but their wool, depending on the sheep, because there's different crimp and there's a whole science that goes into that. But the wool can be good for hand spinners. They're really, really good for meat. They're more of a medium size, so they're not going to hit market weight as quickly as like your Dorper camps and whatnot. But the meat is very tender, very delicate. Even we've harvested a 6-year-old ram, and same thing. Put some roast in a Dutch oven, low and slow. Is super tender, very flavorful, not gamey and tough like you would expect. And they tend to have litters. It's not uncommon for them to have 4 at a time.
Wow.
And so they also often are really good at producing milk. So you could use them for that purpose, as well as just kind of a really great overall homestead animal if you're interested in sheep.
Yeah. Well, I found that the lamb, barbecue was kind of a thing in Texas,
Oh, yeah.
Kind of something we're known for. And we like to eat it. And it's mostly beef, but I found that when I take a lamb roast or lamb shoulder and I smoke it, just almost season and smoke just like I would a brisket, and follow the same procedure that I would for a brisket, I mean, it's almost indistinguishable to me. It turns out really good.
Nice. Well, I don't have a smoker, so that's something I haven't done, but I have made barbecue meatballs, and that was amazing.
Yeah. Well, cool. That's great. So, all right, Jake, I think you got a question there.
Yes, sir. Rachel, why don't you, what we like to do is get kind of a general overview of how you kind of made that transition of kind of Christian normie to following Torah. And that always tends to be a good story to hear from people. And people like to hear those stories, and people like to tell those stories. So do you have, would you kind of give us a high and tight of that of that process?
The short version, right? It all started long ago. No.
Yeah.
So I was raised essentially Baptist. My father was a reverend, and so I grew up doing things like, tent revivals and, traveling. He would preach different places, and going to the store with him, it was never just going to the store and buying things, because by the time we left, he'd already witnessed to like 3 different people. And so I was very immersed from a very early age, and I accepted at the time Jesus when I was about 4 and a half. So very early on, kind of zealous for the faith. And then, life happens and things shift and whatnot. And I went through a period where I wasn't really as close to God. And I don't have one of those like crazy testimonies where you're like, I live for the world and everything is horrible. I didn't quite go that far, but I did kind of step away for a bit. And then I came back like furiously to where I was in one of 2 different churches 5 days a week. So it got a little busy. But then I ended up meeting my husband, not so Christian mingle. And it's funny because we only lived about 4 miles apart. And then like there were times I was places where I should have run into him and met him, and it never happened until we met online. So just crazy how that kind of stuff happens. But
Yeah.
We got married, and like pretty much immediately he was like, just so you know, I don't think I really want to do Christmas anymore, like at all. It just doesn't do it for me. And I don't know if you're familiar with the 5 love languages, but gifts is super low for me. Like it's barely even on the charts. So Christmas for me was never super fulfilling anyway. It's like, oh, you spend like a month and a half, stressing out over buying stuff, and then, making sure you got all the right stuff and wrapping it and all the things. Now you're broke, and, it takes 10 minutes and now you're done. Like,
Yeah.
why did we do this? And so I was like, okay, yeah, that's fine. I'm totally good with not doing Christmas and the whole bunny Easter thing and whatnot. We, great. I'm so grateful because we haven't had that story that so many do, where one side comes to Torah and like kind of drags the other one along. We totally came into this together. And so it's very different from most people's stories, but very beautiful at the same time that the Father just drew us into this together. But we agreed early on, it's like, I don't want to lie to our children and be like, oh, Santa and the Tooth Fairy and Easter Bunny and all these things that we know are not true. So why would we perpetuate these lies for another generation? And we agreed on that. That was great. So like our first year of marriage, we're like, we're not doing Christmas, we're not doing Easter, we're not doing all these things. And we're sitting around, and one day I'm just like, okay, I'm fine with cutting these out. That's no problem. But what are we going to do? We have to have something. Like, what is that tradition? What is that thing that, our children are going to look back on and be like, oh yeah, this is important in my family.
Right.
And so we're like, well, what does God have to say about it? So we start looking, and of course Leviticus 23 happens, and it's like, that says for all generations. Yikes. I have no idea what we're doing. So let's do that. And very much on our own, we started trying to figure it out. And so you end up on websites like Kabod and whatnot that are giving you all the Jewish tradition, apples and honey and like all the things. And we didn't know any better, but we're just like fumbling our way through it, just trying to figure it out. And gratefully also, the naturopath that I had started seeing while we were in Alabama, she had found out, she did one of those DNA tests, like ancestry tests, and she was of Jewish descent. And so she'd gone full blown, we're doing the Jewish thing. And a couple of years before we started talking, and she and I became really good friends, and she started inviting us over for like a Rev Shabbat and for Passover and these different things. She was showing us what that looked like in her understanding. And it was really, really helpful to have somebody who at least had more experience than we had,
Right.
kind of pull, guide us along just a little bit. And she, like I said, she'd gone full Jewish, which I'm not trying to say that that's wrong. It's just more than what we have landed on, if that makes sense.
So did she follow, was it Messianic Judaism then?
Yes.
Was kind of what she fell into?
Absolutely.
Fell into, that sounds negative, but
well, no, but yeah, that's where she was practicing, is
Okay.
she grabbed hold of a lot of those traditions and whatnot. And again, I don't have a problem with tradition. And I'm not trying to say do things, don't do things. Where we have landed is more, what does the Bible actually say?
Right.
And let's start there and decide where we're going to go from there. But yeah, so we were in Alabama, and then as the Army does, it sent us on, and we went to Colorado. Same thing, we're island, can't find anybody. And then one day I just got mad because that's when things happen. And I started looking, where is the fellowship? Because I'm tired of doing this by myself. We're sitting on our back porch trying to Sukkot with like sheets hanging up. And I mean, it wasn't wrong, but it was so empty to just be doing it without community. And so I found 2 local groups, and I'm not a morning person. One of them met at 9 o'clock in the morning on Saturday, and the other met at 1:45 on Saturday. Guess which one I messaged? They were actually, it was so cool. They were meeting every night during Sukkot at the leader's house, which, I kid you not, was 10 minutes from our house. In a city where it can take you almost an hour to get from one to the other. They're literally up the street. And so we went to their house, and everybody's like crock pot, potluck every night, sit around the campfires and the heaters, because October in Colorado, and just fellowshipping and talking about the word and all these things are so beautiful. It was exactly what we had been missing. And so we threw everything we had into fellowshipping with this group. And it was by far the best thing that could have happened to us in that season, because after Colorado, we went to Germany, and there was literally no one anywhere near. Like I would post things in local groups, like, hey, what's everybody doing for Sukkot? Crickets, because nobody even knew what that word was. And so we were completely alone. And all that we had was online. And so we would watch teachings like Corner Fringe, which we found in Colorado, and study and talk amongst ourselves and, talk to friends online. But it was so lonely. It was really lonely during that period. And then we were sent to Indiana, which is where we've come from, to move here. And we found fellowship again. But it's so spread out there that you pretty much are driving an hour and a half any which direction to get to other people, because it's just like this sprinkling of people across the state. We were totally willing to do it. And we did do it for quite a while, until it was, God was like, you know what? It's your turn. You're going to do this now. And so we started a fellowship, and we were leading it for, it was a little over 2 years. And the only reason we stopped is because we moved here. And that was also, it was really, really beautiful to see how God could develop some of the skills that we needed and develop those relationships. And I mean, I'm still talking to and ministering to some of the ladies that were part of that still in Indiana. And it's very interesting, because the whole reason we went to Indiana is we believed that we were supposed to end up in Tennessee. Like, we've been researching homesteading and farming and permaculture and all these things. That's part of why we bought sheep, because we'll try it on a small scale. And then once he gets out of the Army, right, we're going to go buy this huge chunk of land in Tennessee and build this massive farm and employ people, and it's going to be great. And then God says, no, that's not what you're doing. I swear he likes to laugh at me, because I specifically have said I never want to live in Minnesota. Here I am. So I also never want to be a billionaire. But yeah, so he took us to Indiana because that's where he wanted us to be. We thought we were going to Indiana to be as close as possible to Tennessee. And now we're in Minnesota. So it's really interesting to look back and see how the path has gone exactly where he wanted it to go, even though we had no idea that that's what we were doing.
Right. So Minnesota, that's right next to Tennessee, right?
Totally. It's super close. Oh my goodness. No, not at all. We were so far from where we thought we were going to be. But like even the house that we're in, you can really tell when God has said, nope, this is for you. This is what was meant for you. I've had this. I set it aside. This is planned. This is my purpose. And you're going to follow it. And it's going to bless you. And it's like, this house is older. It's got things wrong with it. Like, we're going to have to fix things. The fence needs to, like, my sheep are in cattle panels because we have to fix the fencing before we can just let them out, or the neighbors are going to have sheep. So it's like, nothing, the house is not perfect in our understanding of perfect, but there are so many things about it that I could not have asked for, if that kind of makes sense. And so it's really exciting to see where we've been and what he has for us going forward. So
you really have a unique story. Not many people have the story of you get married and you haven't even come into this and you're like, yeah, we don't want to do Christmas. I've never heard someone say that. So that's pretty awesome. So you started your family and you didn't teach your children the crazy lies that most of the others, like I taught them. And, most of us taught them, all the crazy things that go along with Christmas. And, and so you didn't have to unlearn those lies with your children, which is amazing. So it kind of pushed you up. It definitely was an advantage to you. And something else you talked about was the love languages. And was that Townsend that wrote that book?
Gary Chapman.
Okay, Chapman. Yeah, I read it. And I remember all of that. And, Yah's love language is obeying his commandments, and I say that to people a lot. And I think it's true. That's his, or you might say obedience is his love language. But he's definitely, a doer, an action kind of thing.
I think too, on that, just a real quick note on that is, you see Yeshua kind of address the disciples in different ways. And I think you can tie that to different love languages. Yeah.
There's definitely truth in that book, for sure. And it's cool that you start a fellowship. And so, I appreciate that, hearing your story, because so many people, I think, in this movement, and I do not mean to offend anyone, but so many people are like, there's no one here, we can't do anything. And sometimes I'm like, well, maybe you need to start it. Maybe there's not one there because no one started it.
Yeah.
And even if it's just you and your family, you got to start somewhere.
Right.
And, and even if it's just you have a fellowship meal, invite someone that is another believer. They don't, somebody with a circumcised heart, maybe not as exactly where you are, but I don't think it has to be so complicated. It's just having people in your house that you can fellowship with, and, that would be willing to study, especially if you use vocabulary terms, like we're going to do a Bible study at my house and we're going to eat.
Yeah.
People will come to that.
Right.
But when you use our jargon, then they may be like, what?
Right.
I don't know what that is. And, so I encourage anybody that's listening to this, if you are in that predicament and you're like, there's no one around me, maybe you need to be asking Yah if you should start your own thing. And you know what? Sometimes you start something and he will send you people. He may send you someone, and it may not be who you thought it was going to be. But he, just like what you said, you got to be careful what you say, because sometimes he gives you things that you said you wouldn't do, and next thing you know, you're doing it. So we've got your bio up, and I've got a picture of the book. So if you will, tell us a little bit about this book that you've written, and we want people to go check it out.
Sure. So After the Coming is the first book in a series of 3 that I've put together. I've started the third one. I have not finished the third one because I am the proud owner of a toddler. And so anybody out there who has one of those, you understand completely how precious and how rare some of those quiet moments to focus on things might be. But yeah, so the book actually started literally as a very vivid dream that I had. And I woke up and I was like, okay, I kind of want to know where that goes because this is unusual. Like, this is interesting. And so I wrote down everything I could remember. And then I just started going from there. Like, well, what would happen after that? What would happen after that? And I spent years writing this book. It was not a quick process at all because I would work on it and then I'd end up putting it down for months at a time. When I started this one, my eldest was about 2.5, so toddler years as well. But it just it was challenging to be able to spend a lot of time focused on it because, frankly, real life is more important to me than a book. But something about the main character really resonated with me. She's not meant to be me. I know that might seem possible, but just the way that she looks at problems, and instead of stopping and allowing it to defeat her and allowing it to be too hard, which is so easy to do, she really seeks, well, how can we make this better? How can we help someone? How can we step outside of what makes us comfortable and do something for somebody else? How can we be selfless? How can we be hands and feet? And so, I mean, the book has a faith undertone to it. It's not, right up in your face. Every other word is a scripture reference necessarily. And there is a Torah bend to it, but it's very gentle, so that it would also hopefully resonate within our Protestant brothers and sisters community as well. But yeah, just how can we bless others through impossible situations with a little bit of clean action, a little bit of clean. There's a tinge of romance. I mean, hello, you gotta get a little bit in there, but it's no spice. Like, there's nothing in there that's gonna be like, oh my goodness, say what? My daughter can't read this book because it's too far, it's too much. Because the situations that she's in are realistic for what might happen in a post-apocalyptic style scenario. And so, people aren't always good, but we should seek to be good even in the face of things that are not.
Right. So this one, it opens up literally after the coming, right? So there's this event that they're calling the coming, right? And
Yes.
I think it's likened to like an EMP event, right? Is that how you would describe it?
There is an EMP involved, yes.
Okay.
And then there's a very large disappearance situation where a lot of people are taken, and it's not completely understood at this time how that happens.
Okay.
I get into some more of those details in the second book.
Right. Yeah, I didn't want to like spoil anything. So
Yeah.
unless you're
I'm
fine
willing
with
to
that.
spoil a little bit just because I think some of that's intriguing.
Right.
Yeah. Well, and I think it follows something you see many people use in literature is sometimes you don't tell everything. You kind of slowly reveal things. And, so some books just come out and just bam, they hit you right in the face with this crazy thing right off the bat. And, you don't necessarily define all this at this moment. And there's some things that you'd have to go read the second book to understand, and I think that's a great technique to use in writing.
Oh, thank you. Honestly, the 3 books are all going to take place over the space of just a couple of months. Not very much time will have passed at all. And so it's very easy to continue the story in one of the other books because they're all kind of packed together.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think this will probably be the better question to go with first. So, I guess, what are some of your writing influences? And then I'll say that when I read through this, I saw shades of The Giver, 1 Second After, The Lottery, which is a short story, and then Atlas Shrugged, which is a long story. But so I kind of saw tinges of all those elements in this story. So, and then we kind of talked before recording, but you had a kind of interesting answer to that. But so who are some of your writing influences that kind of you were like, I really like books from this author, and maybe my writing style will kind of follow that, or just from being influenced by that, your writing tends toward that?
Well, frankly, I've never read any of those stories. So it's definitely not those. I don't have a problem with any of them that I know of. It's just not been something that has run across my desk. But no, like I said, a large portion of at least the beginning of the book literally was from that dream. And so I guess you could say my mind, my imagination. I mean, I've read a lot of books, like a lot of books. I mean, I helped put on the summer reading program for other children when I was a kid. So it was like a very well used library card at that time, but I really haven't spent much time with fiction in a long time because I'm homesteading and homeschooling and all these other things. So I tend more towards nonfiction. Like, okay, I need to go and be able to do this homesteading thing.
Right.
Figure that out. So at this time, I don't really have any specific authors that are like, oh yes, totally, I love this one and I wanted to model that. This really was just kind of a conglomeration of all of the influences that I've had, both literary and, watching movies and different things, what made sense in my mind as I went through it.
Yeah. So literally just kind of your own voice on the page.
Yeah.
And then, let's see. So I don't think this will spoil anything. So I'll just kind of give, for those who are familiar with those other books, like we mentioned, there's kind of an EMP situation that may or may not play a large role. And then there's kind of what you mentioned about growing up and having a book situation, running the book club thing for the other kids. There's something very similar to that in this something about collecting and retaining knowledge and that kind of scenario. And then kind of the separation between the town folk and that kind of thing, where the people with the knowledge have this kind of separation from the rest of the town. And I'll kind of leave it there, but you play with those ideas, which I think is a lot of fun.
Thank you.
Yeah. And then do you have another question there, Matt?
Yes, and I'm putting the book there so you can see. So yeah, I was just putting it. I thought that would be a good idea. There you go. So you did kind of touch on this, but you may want to elaborate a little bit more. So we talked about there's other books in the series, and I believe you said there are 2 more.
Yes.
And do you have other things in mind that you want to write? Because you said you liked nonfiction better. Do you think you write something nonfiction one day, or you think you keep writing fiction?
I don't want to commit to anything. I do have a lot of nonfiction ideas. In fact, I have a whole folder in my Google Drive because then I can get to it from my phone. So as things come up, sometimes I'll just throw thoughts into Google Docs, and I have a lot of those with bullet points, and just to try and organize my thoughts. Spiritual warfare has come to the forefront a ton over the last probably year and a half for me. It's like, I don't know how far I want to dig into that, but that's a lot of the nonfiction that I've been really getting into and trying to understand. I feel like our enemy has had millennia to hone his craft, right? Mm-hmm. And we're over here not walking in the authority that we're supposed to have. We're not walking in the understanding that we could have if we really got to understand what spiritual warfare is. I mean, there's this concept of the spirit of offense or the spirit of fear and all these different things. And it's like, we say that, but then do we really recognize that there is in fact spirit behind it? And there's spirit involved in that. And so I do have a few books that I've been playing with, but it's really, really hard to be able to, sit down and study it out and dig into the scripture and really make it coherent when I have a toddler.
Yeah.
I have a boy. He is like all the boy things. And so I really would love to be able to sit down. I've got one that I was toying with on pride, one on fear, and one on offense are the three big ones that have really come to the forefront of late. Like even just this last week, I had two friends call me and both dealing with pride and offense specifically. And they're like, trying to process these things, these situations in their lives that are so hard, so hard things. There's a lot of hurt involved in just, what you would expect, right? When you're dealing with pride and offense, and understanding that, we fight not against flesh and blood, but so many times we act as if we are, right?
Right.
And so recognizing that, it's not the person that you have to get through to. Speaking logic in these cases, that the spirit of offense, for example, has put blinders over their eyes and is influencing them so powerfully. You can speak logic up and down, every which side. It's not going to matter because you're not dealing with the physical, you're dealing with the spiritual. And so that I think the document on spirit of offense went from not existing to I've got about 3 pages just of thoughts on there just this weekend, because it's massive, and it's something that so many people are dealing with, and a lot of times we don't even realize that this is something that we're battling.
That's very, very good to work on. I think it's much needed. And I think of people like Frank Peretti. I think of C.S. Lewis. Those are some things that I read that kind of go along those lines and kind of helped formed maybe some perceptions that I have of it. But those weren't from Torah people.
Right.
So it'd be good to have something from the Torah perspective. But the things that when you were talking about that, I wrote down poverty of mind, poverty of flesh, and poverty of spirit. And so that's something that I pray all the time. And I think I encourage anyone listening to this, and if Jake has heard me say this a million times, but I think it's a good thing to pray for your children, your descendants, and all the people you're connected to, on a regular basis. Pray that they will break free from poverty of mind, poverty of flesh, poverty of spirit. And it's like, it's a thing. And a lot of people are caught up in those things and they don't know. And a lot of people, and this is where, we can bridge the gap, I think, with a lot of our normie people that we may know in traditional church. And is to be able to speak and influence them about some of these things. And if they'll listen, maybe we can at least get them educated a little bit on some of these things and understand how they may have given the enemy legal authority to operate in their life by things that they say or don't say or participate in and watch and do. And, that's very much a legal system. And we can give the enemy legal authority that we have no business giving him.
Right. For sure. Yeah. But yeah, so not fiction and not having anything to do with the current series, but
yeah. No, that's good. Yeah, no, that's interesting for sure. So maybe time will allow it one day, and one day these kids will grow up. I can tell you from personal experience, my kids are all grown now, having kids of their own, and you do literally blink and you're like, wow, they're grown up. How'd that happen?
Nope.
Yeah.
I'm not ready.
Quit opening up those windows there, Matt.
Right.
We don't want to look out them.
That's right.
I'll jump back to present day. So just in some of the ways that you're writing some of the situations that happen in this book, I was wondering if you have some affinity for like wilderness survival things, or learning about wilderness survival skills. let's see, kind of the topic of the book indicates kind of lends toward it, and it's also like kind of the prepper mentality kind of follows in the Torah community anyway. And as you're saying, you're homesteading, which is kind of the ultimate prepper, right? So so what kind of background on that do you have, or
Yes.
just a general interest?
So I grew up raising animals. I was in 4-H, did like all the 4-H things, and so I have a lot of history in that aspect. We grew up my home where I grew up was very far out in the country. Like closest grocery store was easily half an hour. So if you don't have it in the pantry, you're not having it for dinner. And my father was a little bit older when I was born. His parents literally went through the Great Depression. So, or like were raised, kind of following that era. And so like he grew up, he would tell you he pulled nails out of boards in his uncle's lumber yard and straightened them so they could use them again. Like, so that kind of hold on to things and reuse things that are broken or not in the best shape kind of thing was very much a part of my childhood. And even now, like I've been teaching myself how to can and garden and different things there because I don't feel like everything that you buy in the grocery store is actually good for you. I think that's a pretty reasonable suggestion. And so being able to like grow our own meat and grow produce in the garden and whatnot is just something that makes sense to me. As far as wilderness survival, we may watch a few shows that have to do with survival, but I mean, it's good skills. Like our oldest son, he's super excited in something that my husband calls man camp that he would like to do with them, where they go out in the woods and they build a fire and build a shelter and like all these things, because why not? Why not have these skills if you have the opportunity and don't actually have to use them in that moment to survive? Like, why don't we teach these things and have an understanding? Because should something happen and you need it, well, now you have it. I mean, most of the books in my library are nonfiction, like purposeful, like, okay, well, I need to know how to go skin a lamb. Okay, well, here's a book on harvesting animals, or I want to make my own vinegar instead of buy it at the store. I have a book on that. I want to, pick a thing. How do we make do if we needed to? I guess is kind of the thought. Now I'm not full blown. I don't have a bunker. I don't have gas mask. Like I didn't jump into the full blown prepper sphere, I guess you could say, where I can handle any situation ever, because no, I mean, we still have to live, but like providing food and knowledge and skills and stuff is, I think, a reasonable thing for anybody to do. Our grandparents thought this was life. We live very privileged these days, but unfortunately, there's no guarantee that continues for any length of time. So I want my children and myself to be able to say, okay, well, the heat just went off. How do we not freeze? Or, oh, well, I'm hungry. What can I eat out of the backyard? Or frankly, mom has canned everything that we can. I'll just put it off the shelf. But that kind of thing, like reasonable, realistic life stuff, not necessarily going full blown, the world is ending.
Right. Yeah. Well, and I think COVID should have showed us that, it showed you how fragile the world really is, and how fragile this little cush existence we live in can be taken away from us. And we forget too, for our forefathers, especially as, those of us that are reading through the Torah portions, as we're going across the desert here in a minute with those guys, the life we live is so foreign to, people back then. I mean, it was just like, they'd be like, you live like this?
We're kings.
This is crazy.
Right.
You have no idea what I had to do to eat every day or to drink clean water.
Right.
And, it's amazing that we get to live like this, and we do need to enjoy it. And it's wise to prepare and not assume and take it for granted that it could last forever, because it may or may not. Because just as Jake talked about, I didn't mean to say your question, but he talked about something about revelation, how you said that before.
Yeah, I'll just jump into it, and then we can kind of feed off of that. But as relates to the book as well, and we've talked about on our channel before how in Revelation, and also in a lot of the prophets, the verbiage is very pre-industrial revolution kind of verbiage. They're riding horses, they're using swords. I don't see a lot of guns being shot in Revelation, unless you turn all that symbolic, which is a way to look at it. But it kind of, and we've toyed with the idea of, well, perhaps there's an event that kind of takes all this technology away from us, and we are actually back in a horse and sword scenario when, things really ramp up. And so have you thought about maybe that aspect, and interestingly, how it ties in with how it could tie in with your series?
I mean, I don't know that I was thinking about Revelation when I was writing the book. In fact, I wasn't. I can tell you I wasn't. I do think that that's an interesting possibility. I don't tend to spend the most time in prophecy when I'm spending time in the Word, because it can be interpreted so many different ways. And so many people have been like, I know the answer, and this is going to be, and this is this date, and this is that date, and they're always wrong. And I'm not any smarter than they are. So I guess when I spend time in the Word, I try to focus more on, can I understand Yah's heart? Can I understand what it is that he is asking of me? Can I understand what I'm supposed to be doing, or to be teaching my children, or sharing with the world? Do I understand the practical side of things far more than worrying about, okay, well, prophecy says that this is going to happen and this is going to happen. I'm either going to be here for it or I'm not. So maybe that's not the most popular response, but it goes along with the prepper thing. Like, I can sit here and I can worry and I can fuss and I can spend my time thinking about all the what ifs, or I can, pop open a can of bone broth that I made so that I can make soup quickly, because that's a practical application. And so I don't know if I've got the best answer for that.
Well, I think that's a healthy and decent way to look at that. I mean, one of the things that we talk about too is, sure, if you're prepping, that's great, but you can't really depend on your supplies. Really what you're depending on is your faith in Messiah.
Absolutely.
And that's where your faith should be, not in the things I've done and the skills I've gained. Ultimately, I mean, sure, they can help you with certain things, but at the end of the day, I think the death rate is still 100%. So I think we're still headed that way. I think there's worse things than dying. So
yes.
So I think a lot of people, I think, in the prepper kind of side of things are like, anything to survive, and I'll eat dirt and diapers if it'll keep me alive. It's like, I don't know. I mean, I could do that and hang out here more, or like Paul says, when are you going to take me out of here so I can just be with you? Sometimes that's the better answer. So
yeah. Well, and if you're not careful, you can put your faith in, beans, bullets, and isn't there some saying like that?
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah,
beans and bullets, but you can put your faith in what you can do instead of what he can do, and I think that's that's one good thing about growing a garden and thing. That does help you with your perspective a little bit, because when you grow a garden, it's difficult, and the weather doesn't do what you want it to do. The pests don't do what you want them to do, and it doesn't always yield what you thought it would, even though you did the exact same thing and planted it the exact same time as you did last year. Completely different result.
Right. But there will be plenty of zucchini for all.
Yes, and okra.
Right.
Those two. In Texas, okra never fails.
Right.
And you plant a little okra, and you have thousands of okra.
That's right.
So anyway,
and I think your main character in this book tends to voice that same kind of faith, trying to help people out, but still relying not on herself, but on Yah to get her through. So
yeah, and the book really does show. It shows a lot of people exchanging and working together, and this idea that when something like this happens, you would change. You probably you're going to know your neighbor. You're going to interact with them. You're going to have to. It doesn't work if you don't. You won't do well. Yeah. Well, do you have something else there, Jake?
I don't mean to
interrupt your.
I got all kinds of things, but if you got something, you go ahead.
Well, no, you go ahead, and then I'll ask this in a little bit.
Okay. Let's see. So one of the things that kind of struck me too, and again, I don't want you to spoil a bunch of things or anything, but are there some? I noticed that there may be some kind of hidden meanings and some metaphors perhaps in the story. For example, with one of the characters we meet early on, his name's Joshua. And so that, to me, when you come into Torah, Joshua, the name Joshua has a significantly different meaning than before you come into Torah and understand the names of people. And so, so that kind of jumps out at you. And then, without spoiling, is there some kind of connection there and some tie into different biblical themes? Also, I'll point out that this Joshua character lives on a mountain, which is interesting. So just kind of your thoughts in writing that character, maybe, and maybe some hidden meaning in certain scenes that you'd like to point out, maybe.
Oh, that's an interesting question. I know we talked about that briefly before you started recording, and I hadn't necessarily thought about that. And now that you're saying, I'm like, oh, interesting. This, again, part of this was a dream. And so now I'm like, oh, wait a minute. There could be, it's now my mind is just like going and connecting all these things. Like, that's actually really cool. But it wasn't on purpose. So
stay tuned for book 3.
Stay tuned, because it could be even cooler. No, it is really interesting that you bring that up, because with his character and where it goes, again, not trying to spoil anything, but he does end up being a main character. I can tell you that much. I think there could be some hidden meaning there that I didn't even realize was there to begin with. So now I'm excited again. I'm like, oh, wait a minute. Where's that going to go? What can I do with that?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting when people read things and pull their own meaning out of it, kind of with their own life experience. And I think this happens too a lot, because if anyone's taken an English course in college and they're analyzing authors and books, that always drove me so crazy, because it was like, well, maybe they just wanted to write a good story. Maybe they didn't have some secret meaning behind it. They just wanted to write a good story. But everyone's got all these detailed meanings of the hidden knowledge of this book. It's like, maybe not.
It wasn't purposeful, but I am very interested in this now. I appreciate the insight.
And then you kind of brought up the dream aspect of it, and I kind of brought up the lottery aspect of it. So there's a scene in here where obviously there's only a certain amount of goods and a certain number of folks. So there's only so many ways that can work out. It's a, supply and demand issue.
Right.
So one of the things that I noticed in this was inevitably you're going to have a what seems to pull out in these kind of stories is they run into a democratic situation. They form democracies in these little groups, and so basically democracy is majority rule, mob rule. So can you kind of talk about the side of it where in the story and in these kind of situations, we tend to group up and get in our cliques and that kind of thing, compared to like the biblical example in Exodus, where it's more of a representative republic, where with a benevolent theocracy, where you have Moses puts leaders of tens, leaders of hundreds, leaders of thousands situation. So can you kind of speak to that and kind of play off how this works in a kind of a catastrophic situation where people are trying to regain some semblance of governance?
I mean, anytime people are involved, things are messy. And I think everybody can agree to that. And the different groups that appear in this book, as well as the subsequent books, they really kind of demonstrate how the different directions can look, like what the consequences are for following a particular style of, I don't know, mindset, right, is probably the best word for it. In the group that you're talking about, they don't have a very strong mindset. They're not very resilient. They're not hopeful, I think is probably a good word. And so they've resorted to probably one of the saddest aspects of this possibility within this scenario of, life changing completely as we know it. And it's interesting because even just within the town, there's the 3 separate sections of town. Each one is experiencing like their own section of reality, like their own experience. Even though they're all together, they had all the same inputs, all the same thing happened to everybody, but they're all reacting to it differently. And because of that, you see where some are doing well, like they're still managing to move forward, they're experiencing life and you're kind of handling it in stride. And then you have other ones that are they're not doing well at all, like they're failing, they're hurting, they're hurting themselves even. And I think that that's realistic of what you would see in this kind of scenario, because you're dealing with the mind at that point. Experiences are hard regardless, but the people that you see move through them are the ones that have that stronger mindset and that ability to, generally speaking, these are the folks that have faith, right? The ones that are relying on Yah, that are seeking him and believe that he intends all things for good, right? Even the really, really hard things. And that's true of our experience now with the lights on and food in the fridge. And so I did not at this time use that same example that you're talking about out of Exodus, where the main leader is delegating authority to others in the same capacity that Moses ended up doing. I do think that there's a lot of wisdom to that, though, because one person trying to save everybody all the time, you can't do it. You're going to run yourself ragged, and then you're not going to save even yourself.
Right.
So there's so much wisdom in doing that. But I think extremely important to that is Moses just didn't go out and, the first 10, 20 people he saw, right? He was specific. He was like, people that are elders, people that are going to have knowledge, are going to have wisdom, are going to have life experience, are going to not be chasing a toddler. How can we pick the best possible leaders and employ their skills and employ their wisdom and use that to the benefit of everybody? I think there's so much wisdom in that. And I think that structure and that understanding of having those elders with wisdom to teach and to guide those that are younger than them or less experienced than them, sometimes that's not always in age, is something that to a degree is lacking in the Torah community. because we have so many islands, right? You don't necessarily have somebody
Right.
mentoring. You don't necessarily have like the older women teaching the younger and the older men teaching the younger. We don't have a lot of that foundation, and many of us are coming into Torah for the first time in our families. And so we didn't get this from our parents and our grandparents and those that are supposed to have that experience and that knowledge to entrust to us. And so that's one of the things where I think as a community, we desperately need to set aside so much of the division and the nonsense that seems to just crop up over the dumbest things, and recognize, okay, how can we create an understanding of wisdom being important and mentorship, discipleship? Like, how can we put together this structure of the older, spiritually speaking, working with the younger and working with the less mature? And how can we stop doing so many things in the flesh and do them in the spirit, spirit and truth, right? You have to have both. And sometimes that looks like structure, but so many of the folks in the Torah community, man, we have church hurt. We have so much church hurt. And so it's really, you say structure and everybody's hackles go up all of a sudden because
Right.
no, I don't want structure. It's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
I think that it's really important. And now I'm kind of going off away from the book, but you got me into scripture. So
No, that's good.
No, we serve a God who is very structured. If anything, I mean, just look at what we're about to go into, these Torah portions where he organizes them in groups, and they have banners and flags, and it is extremely organized down to the detail. And then you look at how he, especially in the book of Joshua, and the military things, and they're all very, very laid out and thought out and methodical. And so there's wisdom in that, and that's we just mimic our Creator when we do those kinds of things, and we're being what he made. And he comes over the chaos and makes it organized.
Like only he can, because we make such a mess of things.
Yeah. Usually we make it, but I appreciate what you're saying about in the Torah community. We have spent a lot of time dividing and arguing and fighting over nonsense and drawing lines up sometimes where there aren't lines to be drawn, and ruining relationships from our own family, and Jake and I just talked about this last week, something that I just keep thinking about over and over and over, not sacrificing the very people that gave you your faith, because all of us have a grandmother, a mother, a grandfather. Somebody probably planted the seeds that to the kingdom that you've developed in your heart, so to speak, in your spiritual walk. And they may not look like you today, they may not talk like you and think like you, but if it wasn't for the seed that they planted, would you be here today? I know for me, I don't know that I would be here. Y'all might have sent someone else in their place, but we can't forget that how important those relationships are with those folks, because we do owe them a debt of gratitude that we can never pay. We can never pay them back, and we owe them respect and love and kindness because of what they did for us. And and it's the cycle that people go through, the Torah terrorism thing, and it's it's like this phase we all go through, like an angry teenager. Hopefully we don't do too much damage and we come out of that phase okay, but sometimes damage is done in that phase that is hard to undo.
Absolutely.
Right. Yeah, it sounds like you were advocating for a whole Bible community type thing.
Yeah.
Check out the website, Whole Bible Community.
Yeah. So, just recently we interviewed Matthew Martin, and he is out of Tennessee, and he has a website called Whole Bible Community. And he is trying to develop a website and an app that would be kind of like a Facebook for Torah folks, with a marketplace where you can find different vendors, everything from maybe a local mechanic who's also Torah observant, whom we know here in the DFW. We've got one of those, and he'll come to your house and you do a house call, and so there's people like that. You might be somebody that does some kind of service that you don't want to do or can't do, and it kind of helps keep the money in the community and helps you find another fellowship online, and the whole goal of what they're trying to do is to try to unite and not divide up and divide up lines and argue with people
over
and
silly
trying
things, right?
trying to build the community together. So
a lot similar to what you were mentioning there.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that's amazing. I'm very much in mind that we should keep the money in the family as much as possible. And there's other examples of this, even amongst our Jewish brothers and the Muslim community, where a dollar will change hands multiple times before it ever goes out to anybody else, because they're keeping it close. And I think there's so much wisdom in that, and so much we could benefit each other, support each other, make each other successful if we would focus on doing that, and giving people a hand up if they want to start a business. Cool, let's get you started. How can we invest in you? How can we get you going? I think that's a beautiful idea.
Yeah. One, it does fit with your book because, and if, the possibility of these, like we talked about, could happen. And the more of those kinds of networks we build and know each other, then we have people with skills and products and things that we can tap into. And that definitely is going to help us.
Absolutely.
Yeah. After the coming.
That's right.
You want to do that before, after the coming.
Yeah. A lot easier if you do it before, but.
Yeah, kind of like you were saying, the way they need to build up these this leadership role. We see in the book that if they would have done that beforehand, they wouldn't have to be doing it now. Like, they don't have a well to pull from that has leadership skills that they're looking for, and trustworthiness that they can lean on, because in this situation, no one can trust anyone really. And so you kind of see that here, where in the book, where they, again, they didn't dig their well before they were thirsty. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that kind of like going to the grocery store when you're hungry?
Yeah.
So you're not supposed to do that either. So I don't recommend that. So you definitely overbuy when you do that. So, and you're like, ooh, I want that. And then later you're like, yeah, why did I buy that? Usually my wife's like, why did I take you with me? Because this just cost me more money.
See, I'm probably more of the problem. My husband will get an impulse buy here and there, but see, I don't do my nails. I don't, I'm not coloring my hair, but I will go buy me some groceries. So,
yeah, well, especially for me, because I don't do it often, and when I do, it's like, whoa, I've never seen this before. I have to try this. So yeah, I'm dangerous.
Yeah,
but just like what you talked about with the food and canning and putting up your own food. Yeah, clearly, probably all the things that I'm excited about are probably absolutely terrible, and I should never eat them. So, but anyway.
All right. Let's see. Why don't you go ahead?
Okay. So the last question I wrote down for you was, I would like you to kind of tell about your Debarim Publishing experience and include, advice or wisdom, things you learned along the way to someone that might be listening to this, that might feel also that they've, yours started with a dream, that they may feel like they've got a story to be told, and just kind of talk about your experience with Debarim Publishing and kind of what someone should do if they have a story.
Sure. So my experience is probably a little bit different than most people's. I had actually already published through Amazon, both the first and the second book, before I reached out to Sarah. So I don't have the thickest skin. And I had opened a tab on my browser for Debarim probably a year before I ever reached out to her. Like, I've already published the books. I've been marketing it, a little bit to my friends and family. And that tab sitting next to me, like, oh, nobody's gonna want to, work with my book. All those little whispers, the enemy, trying to put you down and tell you, oh, don't try too hard. And so I just let it sit there because I'm like, well, maybe I will, maybe I won't, maybe I will. Well, it's just like the two-stepping of nonsense. And then Sarah Williams, she did the interview with Luca Baffy, and I'm sitting there like, I know that name. It's on my browser. And so sure enough, I went and I convinced myself to just send her an email. Like, what's the worst that can happen? If she says no, I'm technically already published. Like, her no doesn't actually hurt me, right? Well, she said yes. I'm like, oh no, okay. So wait a minute, now what are we gonna do? And so I sent her the first document, and she's looking at it. She's like, okay, yeah, we can work with this. I have some edits. I have some thoughts on it. So we'll go ahead and take it through the full process as if you had not published. But I think there's room for some improvement, which honestly was great. I had asked a couple of people if they would help me by like reading and trying to help me edit and see things from a different lens, because you look at something so many times and you just can't see it anymore, But I didn't really get a lot of feedback. And so going through the editing process for me was probably a little tough. It's like this emotional roller coaster of, I've spent years on this. What do you mean I have to change it? Okay, yeah, you're right. That probably isn't a change. So it was interesting. I pitched a couple of quiet fits as I'm going through some of her edits and whatnot. Like, I don't want to change this. I spent a lot of time on it. In the end, I do think that the book is definitely better for her having spent the time looking through it and just really helping me see it through a different set of eyes. Ultimately, no book is ever going to be perfect outside the Bible, of course, not being sacrilegious, but there's your basic grammatical rules, right? Use commas, don't use commas. The rest is all opinion. Okay, so if you're sitting there and you're worried about my book isn't perfect or my book isn't good enough, anything can be improved. And even if you have a really, really great book, somebody else is going to look at it and have an opinion and have a thought based on their life experience and their understanding of how the language should move. That doesn't mean you have to change everything. She put in those edit suggestions for me to consider. I could have said no to literally any of them. You know what I mean? So I still had full power over my manuscript. And at the same time, I had the benefit of somebody else's experience to be able to help me make it better. And so while editing was a little tricky for me, just, in my heart, but at the end of it, I'm so grateful that I did it. It's a really cool experience. A little hard, but really cool. I've just sent her the second book. She's just starting first edits on it now. So it should be released probably sometime in the next few months. I don't have an official timeline on that one just yet, but Coming Home is the second book. And so I'm really excited to see. I'm nervous excited to see what she has to say about this one. But yeah, no, she does really great work. She's not like rude about her corrections. She's just kind of matter of fact, let's look at this, and I really appreciate that, she was an author first before she was an editor and before she was a publisher. And so she has a really nice perspective as to, what does this process need to look like? How can I best support the author through this process? How can I make sure that that they're being taken care of? And I really appreciate that about her. So I have recommended working with her to a couple of other people I know of that are writing books, and I hope that they'll work with her because I definitely think it's worth it.
Yeah, that's good. And what I think is so important too is to write these stories, because with the rise of AI, it's really spooky, because you can literally speak into, like we could go right now into AI and say, write me a children's book. I want it to be 28 pages long, and I want you to insert this, and I want it to have a AB. I want a children's book, and I want it to be AB pattern or something. And in like 10 seconds, it cranks out something, and it is ridiculous that it can do that. But I think as time goes, we are going to people are going to get hungry for original human created content. And so I think that works on because some people are like, books, who reads books? And but people still read them, and we should. And in fact, we definitely need to all put down our phone more, and it'd be much better to put that phone down. And there's just so many bad things that can happen with looking at these phones up close all the time, from the electromagnetic waves to the blue light to all these things that may cause dementia and eye problems. And I mean, none of it's good, but reading a book, it doesn't have any drawbacks. You're going to get smarter. You're going to know how to speak and talk better. Most likely, the more you read, the better you can communicate. And so I encourage you to pick up a book and read if you haven't, and pick hers up. And so I want to go ahead and go right to that. So you can buy it here at Ingram Spark, which if you go to DebarimPublishing.com, you can find it there and purchase it directly from there. When you purchase that way, more of the money goes to Debarim and to Rachel for sure. You can also, of course, find it on places like Amazon, and it's listed there.
For a cool $470 on
What is
Amazon.
I think that was in pounds or something. So I looked at that earlier, and it's because I have a tab set up. It says English, so it must be.
It's got a funny flag on it.
I know that doesn't seem so. It must be. I'm not signed into my
$20. Oh my.
Well, yeah. If you look closely, it says it's some funny symbol that's not dollar signs.
Ooh, I like the $1,409 paperback version. Please.
Yes, that's not US dollars.
Then I'll be writing a whole lot more books.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. For some reason, my zip code is set to Mumbai.
Oh my goodness.
So let's set to my zip code. It makes me want to sign in. So that's weird that it defaults to.
We tricked you. You thought we were in Texas.
to Mumbai.
We're in Mumbai.
So, anyway, well, it's in Barnes and Noble, much cheaper. So, so definitely a buy at $19.99. Buy it now. So. But if you Google it, you'll find it, and just make sure you have the right money denomination. That probably helps. And so, but anyway, we encourage you to go support her. Is there any other website, any other thing that you want to tell about?
I mean, that's everywhere that I'm aware of that that Sarah's put it up for me. I mean, I have an Instagram, R Durham Books, but I don't put a whole lot on there. I'm so bad at marketing. I'd much rather write the book. But I do have that Instagram if anybody's looking. And I'm on the Whole Bible Community also, actually.
Okay. There you go.
There you go. And you'll see that her book is listed there on the Debarim Publishing page, and you click it, and it takes you to the Ingram Spark, and it is $18.99 there. So you actually can save $1 off of Barnes and Noble, and
Barnes and Not So Noble.
That's right. You don't have to give them that extra $1. So, but anyway, Jake, what else you got? I'm going to leave that up there for a minute.
No, that's kind of all I had. I did want to mention. I did put a note here talking about anyone who's familiar with the trolley problem, where essentially you have no good options. There's many people on the track, and the trolley's coming, and you are at the switch. You can switch it to another track, but the other track has someone on it that will die also. So are you going to kind of input yourself into the mechanism to alter the outcome and make things, it may be less tragic, but now it's at your hand instead of, oh, well, I had no involvement there. So I think inevitably books like this are going to have a lot of those kind of situations, and you'll see some of that in here. Specifically, I'll mention one thing. The main character says, "Nothing I do is going to be right in terms of this situation she finds herself in," and so sometimes you get past, the opportunity to make a good decision, and all the options that are left are bad decisions. And so basically, if you're interested in that kind of thing, there's that in this book. And like I mentioned before, if you like stories like The Giver, stories like 1 Second After, or Atlas Shrugged, or The Lottery, things like that, you'll find elements of those in this story. So if you like those kind of stories, then I would recommend getting this book. And I found it to be a very fun read. So that's my pitch for the book.
All right. Good to know you do read.
I do at times.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's good. Well, Rachel, we really appreciate your time this evening, and you didn't get interrupted. So your children looks like, so A+ to your husband. Did a great job watching those children. So anyway, we appreciate you being with us, taking time, and once again, we encourage you to get to know her a little bit by purchasing her book, and you'll get to know a little bit about what's going on in her head. And we encourage you to, if you, just like she said, if you have a story to tell, reach out to Sarah Williams, Debarim Publishing as well. So, all right. Well, Rachel, it's been a pleasure talking to you. And we look forward to seeing what these other books are about, and more to the story.
Thank you so much. This has been awesome.
All right.
Yeah, and perhaps when we get the follow-ups, we can have you on again, and we can do some follow-ups with you.
Yep. And Rachel, if you'll stay on the line just a minute, there'll be some housekeeping things we have to take care of before we depart. So anyway, thanks to everyone out there. We will air this. This should be airing live on Shabbat, this coming Shabbat. I guess this depends on when you watch it, about 9 a.m. That's when we
if you're watching it, it's out.
Yeah. Guess what? It's here. So, and we try to be in the comments live, at least one of us, sometimes both of us. So next time, try to catch us live, and you can at least interact in the comments. So we appreciate all of our loyal people who share and who are in the comments week after week. And it's so great that to get to know you, and we appreciate you being there. So, but this is Matt and
Jake
signing out.